David Moore, Dallas Morning News.
Right.
I know Mike and you've talked about the emphasis on the run game this offseason, kind of getting back there. How have you progressed on that? What were some of the things you were looking at doing there? And last year against Tampa Bay was a game where you decided it didn't make sense for you to run. How are things different potentially this year?
I think starting with Tampa, obviously they do a tremendous job. I mean, year in, year out, Todd's obviously going to do a tremendous job stopping the run, and they got the guys to do it. And so they're a really talented team up front. I think as this offseason progressed, I think that's one thing, especially with the way the offseason is structured now. You only get so many days in pads. I think it's so critical that you got to take advantage of those days and really hone in on the run game. And so when you do get those opportunities in Oxnard and in some of these preseason games, you got to take as many opportunities as you can, just because that's the stuff it's hard to replicate in the spring and so many other phases of this offseason program. So it's a huge emphasis for us because, you get 10, 12 padded days, and that's really what you got to take advantage of.
Clarence Hill, four-star television. Just piggybacking on that, Tyler Smith, can you just talk about his development and his readiness for this opener and needing to run the ball, get, young linemen run block better than they pass block and all that stuff, and how does Jason Peters figure into this equation?
Tyler's done a really nice job. Obviously, he's kind of stayed on that left side throughout this offseason program, through OTAs, through training camp at that left guard, left tackle. He's done a tremendous job. Those guys are always learning so much each and every time, and so I thought Tyler's done a heck of a job. He's come in, he's got the physical presence and the abilities, and I think each and every day you just see these big leaps and bounds and growth opportunities that he's taken advantage of. And bringing a guy like Jason in, I think, is really unique opportunity for us. I think it's awesome. For him as a player, I think he still got it. You saw him in Chicago when he played there. He did a really nice job for those guys. And then obviously the other component of it is what he can provide for that room for, a number of young guys in that room that have maybe played, rookie year, or maybe only played a year or two. To have a guy like Jason in there, I think is obviously so valuable for all the experiences that he can lean on and talk to those guys about. And, we got Zach, who's done it for a while, but we also got Jason now, so it's awesome.
Does this affect your play calling at all, with the inexperience? You got two new starters on the left side going into this game.
I think there's always personnel stuff. You're always, game planning. It's on both sides. It's guys that they have that are really talented. We have guys that are really talented. There's going to be different things that you're always working through, and so I think we feel really comfortable with where we're at.
Oh, that was mine. Well, actually, I got another one.
Just rephrase it.
Dory, I was signed with USA Today. I know you mentioned a little bit of the game planning, but how do you coach Dak in a situation like this where you want to trust your left tackle, but you also need to be aware differently of what's going on over there?
No, I think it's all in the training of how we've approached this whole offseason, and so we're going to play football, and we've certainly done it week in and week out through the OTAs, through training camp. I thought Dak's done a tremendous job. Tyron doesn't always practice. You have other guys pop in there. I think the more we've rotated guys, you get used to different people and being in different positions. And so, Tyler, I think, or Jason, or whoever, Wally, Josh, all these different guys who can play left tackle. I mean, we got a tremendous number of guys who've all taken tons of reps over there. And so it's not like they're going to be foreign to Dak looking over there and seeing one of those guys over there. They've all been over there at some point.
How is Dak a different player in year 7 than he was the first 6 years?
Great question. Each and every year, I think there's just a growth of leadership, command, understanding of the offense, ownership. I think for all players, that's where it goes. It gets to the point where, you're calling a play and he kind of walks off, and because he kind of assumes he knows what's coming. He knows the rest of how the rest of the words flow, and so those are fun moments. I think he just sees it so well. He's got such great communication as far as what he sees on the field and how it can be applied to in-game adjustments or different things that we can get to. I think he does a tremendous job, and there's other guys on our team, Zach, Schultze, CD, Zeke, TP, all these guys who've kind of played a bunch of football that I think they're all in a really cool space right now.
Kyle Gilman's DallasCowboys.com. Now, kind of along the same lines, with so much inexperience on the offensive line, how much do you rely on Zach Martin as the stable piece up front for your play calling, your preparation, so on and so forth?
Well, Zach's certainly been that way for a long time. I don't think it's unique to just this year. I think it's been that way for a while, and so he's a guy that you're going to trust. He's going to get the job done. He's going to have a tremendous impact on this game, on each game really. And for me, he's a guy that obviously I'm gonna have a lot of conversations with. I love being able to talk ball with him, kind of where he sees it going, where he feels we can take advantage of different opportunities, and he's just one of those guys we're gonna definitely lean on.
Have you seen him interacting differently with some of those young guys just throughout the summer and now into the regular season?
There's definitely a leadership role of him just being able to spend more time with those guys, outside of meetings, extra conversations that those guys can have, just being a sounding board for those guys. I think it's really unique and really awesome that those guys have guys like Tyler, like Jason, or Zach, but Tyler Biadic, even he's, coming into his third year. Those guys who've been around it for a little while now that, ask those guys questions. They've been in the battles, and, they can certainly be resources for those guys.
Calvin Watkins. Sure.
Yep.
Okay. Calvin Watkins, Dallas Morning News. Behind CD, you got a lot of inexperience at wide out. I mean, you always play a little bit there. Just put your confidence level in some of those young kids, especially going on week one.
It's really fun and exciting just because, there are these ebbs and flows over seasons after seasons where guys are able to kind of stay in the same place for a number of years. And we had some awesome guys here, and guys, they're going to go make have big time seasons at other places as well. They were really talented players, but we got these young guys who've kind of been ready and growing, and now they're in these opportunities to take advantage of. And I'm really excited about all those guys. I think as we went through training camp, it was awesome to see those guys kind of have those moments, have those big plays in a 2-minute drive or a call-it period or a preseason game. And so you kind of build those confidence moments for all of us, but for them certainly individually. And so, it'll be fun.
Oh, Christy.
Christy Scales, Cowboys Radio. Similar question, but in the tight end room,
Yeah.
with Dalton Schultz being your lone holdover. What were some of the things in particular with Ferguson and Endershot that really stood out in preseason that make you feel confident going into regular season?
I think with Jake and Peyton, we got a really awesome situation. We have 3 guys in there, and they are really, really smart. Their ability to kind of process that tight end room, I think a lot of you guys understand just how much work they have to do. They're a part of the run game, at the line of scrimmage. They're a part of the pass game. They're a part of protections. They really got to know it all and be able to apply all those different techniques and lessons and all those sorts of things. And those guys have hopped in there, and we've thrown them into the fire, and they've taken advantage of it. So we feel really, really good about those guys in all phases of the game, and certainly we're excited about being able to utilize them throughout the season.
Babe Loffberg, Dallas Cowboys Radio Network. We talked a little bit about Zach there. Obviously, you didn't have him last year in the Tampa game.
Yeah.
You ended up throwing it 58 times. Anyway, did that kind of change your thinking?
You're a quarterback. You like
Right.
that, baby.
Did that change your thinking a little bit when you lost him and how strong they were in that interior?
You got to kind of shuffle on the fly a little bit.
I think we went into the game with a very balanced attack like we usually do with games, and understanding you have to adjust as games go on. And that game, we had a lot of runs called, but there's throws that became completions that are tagged passes, and so it looks statistically in a box score it looks like there's a lot of passes, but plenty of run opportunities. They did a really good job stopping the run. We took advantage of some other opportunities on the perimeter, and so we'll kind of see how this one takes its course.
Patrick Walker, DallasCowboys.com. More of a two-part question, Kellen. First part of it being through a coordinator's eyes, what have you seen from an undrafted guy like Dennis Houston, the strength he's had in camp that shows you that, hey, he's not only worth an active roster spot, but he could potentially make an impact in year one, but also how do you balance that with, getting Tony Pollard more involved in the passing game in those 2 back sets with him and Zeke?
Yeah, those are really good questions. Dennis, really, it's an awesome example of guys just taking advantage of opportunities. During the offseason program, during OTAs, guys get banged up, and guys aren't available in practice, and certain young guys get opportunities. They get to hop in there with Dak as an undrafted rookie and go in a 2-minute drill. And guess what? If you make a bunch of plays, then the QB says, I want that guy more. And so he gets, more opportunities. And so I think he's a really cool, awesome example of just a guy who works his tail off, and he put the time in to learn the system, and he understood it. And so that when he did have that opportunity, he took advantage of it. And he's really given us no reason not to give him more opportunities. And so really, really excited about where Dennis is headed. So him, and then obviously on Tony's aspect, Tony's the guy that, we're really excited about just finding different ways that we can utilize him and use him in different roles. And so it's going to be fun. It's going to be really exciting to have Zeke and Tony and be able to play with those guys. And, as the season progresses, we find our little adjustments, and seasons always take different paths, and we'll play with the roles that those guys have. And so week in and week out, we'll be able to adjust those things and make changes.
Tyler Troy, the ESPN. How you doing? With this,
I'm gonna get used to it. Sorry.
I was gonna say not David Moore, Clarence. First week game plans. How much time and effort have you put into those compared to, weeks 2 through 18 or 17?
I think the biggest challenge with week ones is trying not reinvent the wheel, so to speak. I think that's the saying everyone uses, and especially when you have kind of this mini bye that we had last week, and so I think it's definitely a challenge to, we've done a lot of work through OTAs, through training camp, invested a lot of time in certain things, and so we feel really good about it. And then you're obviously going to compare that with a matchup of an opponent and try and find those different little adjustments and tweaks within our game plan that we can utilize based off these guys as an opponent. But I think throughout the offseason, you're usually looking at your first 4 or so opponents and kind of peeking at them, kind of making sure, hey, training camp, we're kind of matching some of the things we'd like to probably do in the first few weeks, just so you're not throwing a bunch of stuff at the players. The worst thing as a player is to walk in and all of a sudden see this thing, change just because it's the regular season. So hopefully it feels a little bit like, okay, nodding our head. We've seen this, we've seen that, we've seen that. Okay, here's a couple little flavors for this particular week.
Mike was talking this morning about anticipating double teams for CD, and he said of CD, he's the guy. Do you agree with that? And if so, what does that mean?
Great question. I think obviously CD's had a tremendous career so far, and I think he's going to have some really good opportunities this year. And I think everyone kind of knows that, and everyone's excited about that. I think he's excited about it. We're all excited. And so as the season progresses, different teams are going to approach that differently. I think we feel really good about some of our other players as well that will be a nice complement to CD. And so I think the fortunate thing for us is as we go through training camp, we see all this stuff from our defense, a lot of the different things that people can do based off of a particular player. And so I think we got guys that are ready to handle those things.
Michael Galkin, Dallas Morning News. Monte Turpin, anyone can see he's fast, but now that you've had a chance to work more closely with him and kind of tinker with what he can do, what have you learned about him since you first started working with him?
Yeah, he has been awesome. So the coolest thing I think about him is he came in, really right at the beginning of August, came in right off the USFL, and he obviously had a defined role that everyone kind of could see and project from a returner standpoint, and the things that a returner can do on offense. But it's been really cool to see him just be able to become a receiver, and I think that's the coolest thing that other guys, as training camp progresses, other guys, maybe are out a day, and he just hops in there and starts taking advantage of plays and opportunities. And so, we see him as a receiver, and I think he's going to be able to play a role that's a receiver, not just a gadget guy, so to speak. And so, he showed it in USFL. He's shown it for us in training camp. We got no reason to not believe it, that it can happen in the regular season as well.
Is the challenge with him sometimes when he's on the field, defense says, oh, the ball's going to him, but you got to trick it up a little bit so he can get free to make plays for you?
Well, I think that's certainly the challenge when you have a guy like that you're not putting him in just for, plays that are focused on him. And I think that's the beauty of what he can provide us is, we do see a receiver. It's not just a guy who's going to run, an around or a fly sweep or a handoff play or something like that. We see a receiver.
In the past, Tony and Zeke been more of a change of pace. Tony been more of a change of pace than Zeke. Is it safe to say that there would be more of a tandem that would share the load more so than change of pace and,
Yeah, I think we can
I know
utilize.
the same kind of words, but I mean,
Yeah.
it means different things though.
I think we love both of them. We want to get both those guys as many opportunities as possible. And as games go on, we'll find that ebb and flow between, having one guy on the field, the other guy on the field, and having both guys on the field. And I think we got, I think it's a really exciting opportunity that we can utilize those guys.
Have you learned anything about the load that Tony can take? I mean, I know in the past, it's been, of course, he's never really carried the whole load. He's never really had 20 touches a game for back-to-back games. Have we learned more about what his body can handle, and do we have a sweet spot there?
It's certainly something that was a focus for us through training camp, just to kind of gauge, all his different roles, because the last thing you want to do is make a guy go do a million other things and then ask him to go play running back after he's, played a different role for 8 or 9 plays. And so there's definitely a balancing act between it. And I think, as the season progresses, as week in and week out, the thing progresses, I think we can kind of find where we move those margins with Tony as far as play count, opportunities, carries, all the different things that he can do.
Michael Gallup, in his recovery from the torn ACL, he's moving well, looks and sounds as if he's checking all the boxes and the progression. Obviously, week 1 is going to be out for him. Do you think it's realistically possible that he can come back as early as week 2?
It's a great question. I think all I know is it's been spectacular to watch him. I think it's been really fun just to watch him go through this process. He's an inspiration for all of us because he's a guy who has a smile on his face through this whole adversity challenge that he dealt with. And so it's really, really cool to see. And, to see him out there on the field, really, have a jersey on to go through, some football aspects. I think it's just been so cool. And so, when he does come, we're going to be really, really excited. I think everyone's going to be rooting for him.
Skyler Dixon with the AP. Back on Zeke, have you seen anything different out of him, determination or wanting to show the world anything this year versus other off seasons or camps?
I think he's the motivated Zeke that we all know and love, and I think he knows how we're going to operate here, and I think he's really excited about all the opportunities that he's going to be provided. And he knows that Tony's going to be on the field with him at the same time, and Tony's going to go in there a few times when he needs a breather at times, and still going to be a running back. And so I think he knows exactly how this whole thing's going to flow, and it's going to be really, really exciting because he's going to get plenty of opportunities, and he's going to take advantage of them.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.